Jonnicom.
Alright guys, so today I wanted to talk about the NES and my experience with it, specifically how I discovered it, or rather how I was born and raised with it, and just kind of talk about my story, my experience with the NES through my lifetime. This is part of a new series that I'm trying out where I'm kind of shouting out Daft Punk by calling it Random Access Memories. I basically just want to talk about my experiences with consoles, video games, video game franchises, or, really anything in general. I'm just going to kind of talk about my memories with it. Starting with the NES, because the NES is where I started with gaming. I would say that this was my first console, but it really wasn't. I kind of spawned in with it. What I mean by that is it was a hand-me-down console. It was my brother's and by extension, I believe my father's kind of collection. I have a half brother. His parents split. My mom met my dad. I had a half brother. He had an NES, so it was always around. And my dad was into video games too, more arcade stuff. But because he was into video games, he did obviously keep a steady supply of video games coming in. So I kind of want to talk about how I remember the NES, because like I said, I don't specifically remember getting it. I just kind of spawned in with it, along with a Sega Genesis, but that's a story for another time. So what I remember about the NES, my earliest days, obviously I think remembering playing anything on the NES, was definitely Super Mario Brothers. Specifically the Mario Brothers Duck Hunt edition. It came with pretty much every NES. I'm pretty sure the NES that my brother had was one of the later models because it had the controllers, it had the orange gun, and it had Mario Duck Hunt. So I know this was a pack-in with most consoles, but I think he had one of like the later action sets. Because I believe that the orange guns came with the newer consoles because of, a little bit of controversy there. But by the way, pretty much none of this stuff is from my original collection because I stupidly sold it when I was a kid. That's part of the story. My earliest memories with video games, and I think it's the same for a lot of people, is Mario Brothers Duck Hunt. And the amount of time that I spent playing this game and not beating it, you could probably do studies on it. But I do love this game. I remember very, very specifically sitting in front of the old, console TVs that had shelves and crap built into them. And it would be me, my brother, and my mom late at night sitting around the TV playing Mario Brothers Duck Hunt. And anytime I'd get to a hard part, I would hand the controller off to my mom or my brother, and they would kind of do that. And I don't recall ever beating it on my own as a kid. I do remember beating it playing together, which is one of the only core memories I have playing games with my brother and my mom. Was playing this. I can still see the flooring that was in the living room at the time. I can still see that TV. I see my mom's crazy perm haircut, my brother's bowl cut. I remember it all so vividly playing this game and beating Bowser for the first time. My brother did it, obviously, but we all played together, so it was the first time I had ever seen it, beaten, and I was just mind blown that Peach doesn't tell you that your princess is in another castle, the game was over. But that's the thing that I remember. I just remember the times that I would throw this controller on the ground in frustration playing Mario. And I also remember, all of the times playing, God, I used to drive my parents crazy with this thing because, this is not just a video game accessory. I mean, when you're a kid, this is a toy, and I mean, you can imagine how annoying it would get if, I was just running around the house the whole time as a kid who was really into cowboys and Woody from Toy Story, and just constantly clicking this thing off. I mean, it couldn't possibly get annoying, right? I mean, it couldn't possibly get annoying, to hear this over and over again. I love this thing. This is such a cool thing that, still works today if you have a CRT TV. There are even companies now that are making, light guns that work with, modern TVs on the old hardware, which is really, really cool. I'm glad we're finally at that point, but you can't beat the NES Zapper, man. And this was, the one that, not the exact one, but the one that I had, the orange one. And I just think it still looks so cool to this day. I mean, they're still putting this thing in Splatoon, because that's how cool it looks. It's just a cool design. It's a really neat thing. I just remember all of the times I would be playing this game, shooting the ducks in Duck Hunt, missing profoundly, and that damn dog always laughing at me. But it's such a good memory, and I love the design of those characters. When I play Smash Brothers, the more recent games, obviously, Duck Hunt is one of my favorite characters to play just because it's such a cool implementation of the light gun mechanics. I absolutely love Duck Hunt, and what can you say? Classic game right here. I mean, I just have so many good memories with this game. You know, of course, like I said, we had a pretty big NES collection when I was a kid, and I don't have copies of every game that I grew up with, but I do have most of them. That's been one of my little projects over the last year and a half, is I've been trying to actually find copies of the games that I had as a kid. I went through an entire list of every NES game because I had like, you know, maybe 30, 40 NES games in my childhood collection. I didn't play a lot of them, so that's why I don't remember them as well, but I've been trying to actually find them in stores instead of just ordering them online. So I'm going to go through the ones that I have, which are kind of in the back here, and just really quickly kind of talk about them if I have anything interesting to say. Starting with my first experience with a bad game was Back to the Future. Now, this game is absolutely awful, but as a kid who absolutely loved Marty McFly, Doc Brown, the DeLorean, Back to the Future, I did like this game, and I can still find some things to like about it to this day. I remember when I first got back into NES collecting, this was one of the first games that I had to pick up because I was like, you know, I know it's a bad game, but I still have memories of playing it and loving it, so there are some things about this game I actually do enjoy. I think this game could have really been fixed by like some type of save system and just being a little bit more forgiving and maybe slow. This game is actually kind of saved by save states nowadays, but yeah, it's a bad game, but it's one of those guilty pleasures. Another game that people kind of rag on is Bad Dudes. Now, this is like a side-scrolling brawler beat-em-up game. It gets a lot of crap. It is kind of difficult, but I still enjoy this one as well. I actually beat this one a while back on real hardware. I was very proud of myself. I love this game. It's so dumb. It's like easy and hard at the same time, if that makes sense. But it does have one of the greatest ending cutscenes where you get to go have a burger with the president at the end. So, you know, that's pretty cool. I have a lot of memories with this game, and it screams like 80s, 90s attitude. I mean, Bad Dudes, what can you say? But the superior beat 'em up that I owned was Double Dragon 2. Now, this game I have a really weird relationship with these days because I still love this game, but I can't believe that I put up with the controls when I was younger, because the weapons and like attacks that you use are dependent on what direction you're facing. So like if you're facing left, B is punch, but if you're facing right, B will be kick, and vice versa. It's very strange, but you kind of get used to it after playing it for a few minutes. It's very weird. But this game, I think, has aged incredibly well. It has so many awesome moments in it, like when you're on like a treadmill and you're about to get like thrown into a hole and die, or when you're like in a helicopter fighting and you're throwing dudes out of the helicopter, you're fighting on rooftops. This game just has such great environments, and the use of color in it is fantastic. I absolutely love Double Dragon 2. Now, I don't really have much to say about these three in you know, my own experience. I played Tetris a little bit as a kid. I didn't care for puzzle games back in the day. Operation Wolf is like a hard-as-nails light gun game that I could never survive more than 10 seconds in, but I do remember trying to play it all of the time as a kid and failing miserably. But I do want to talk about golf a little bit. So the thing about golf is I never cared for it, but I do remember my brother and my dad playing it quite a bit. I never understood how to play it. I just always would get excited because I thought it was a Mario game, and then I realized, no, it's just golf. But my dad used to play this game a lot along with Tetris. In fact, I have a really fun story that my dad always likes to tell about Tetris, and I do remember this happening more than once. But when I was a kid, you know, I was literally, like I said, spawned in with the NES. So I grew up with it. It existed before I did in this household. I do remember my dad getting like obsessed with Tetris every now and then, where he would like kind of take over the NES, and it would be like hours into the night. You know, I would go to bed. I recall as a kid, like, you know, you wake up as like a scared kid, or just like you wake up in the middle of the night and you walk to go get like, you know, a glass of water, or wake up your parents because you're scared or something like that. And I would instead walk out into our living room, and my dad would be sitting there curled up on the floor playing Tetris, and he would have been there since he got off at work at like 11 or 12, and it would be like 4 a.m. and he would just be like having like the games of his life in Tetris. And I always think it's funny because he always tells me this one story of like one morning when he did it, and he had like something important he had to do the next day, and my mom came in and was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "What?" He's like, I got off work." And she's like, "It's 6 a.m. You've been playing Tetris all night." So, you know, he was very much one of those people that actually like had like the Tetris brain and like got addicted to it. He told me he was one of those people who would he would go to bed and he would hear the music and he would see the blocks, and he had to go back and and play more. You know, it's funny thinking about that now, because my dad is not a gamer today by any means, and like I said, more of an arcade gamer. He was never hardcore about it. He was very casual about it, but there were certain moments where, you know, I can see where I picked it up from, because he was definitely a Tetris head. Talking about some games that are more like licensed or like, you know, based on franchises. These two are very special to me. The first being Lone Ranger. Like I said, I was really into cowboys when I was a kid. Like the whole like cowboys, Indians, or Native Americans, or whatever you're supposed to say these days. I loved this game. It's like Zelda meets Mega Man meets like its own little like action game. It's just really cool. It's got like some top-down segments. It's got segments where you're dungeon crawling. You can actually use the zapper if you want to play some of these dungeon crawling sections. There's side-scrolling sections. It's just such a cool game, and it's really underrated. Over the years, I've seen more people talking about this game, but it's so underrated. And what's really cool about this one is, you know, like I said, I really love this game, and I'll get into the story of how I kind of rediscovered the NES and you know, all that, but something I do want to show you guys real quick. Let me grab it. Lone Ranger is the one NES game where I do actually have the original box. It's not in great condition. There are none of the inserts or anything, but I do have the box. I believe when I bought this, along with my new copy of the Lone Ranger, I paid like $13 in total, because the woman that was selling it at the flea market at the time, she sold me the game for $4, and then I went back and she's like, "Oh, I found the box." I was like, "Oh, cool, thank you." She's like, "No, I'm not giving it to you." She sold it to me for like another, I think she tried to get 10, and I was like, "I only have $9, so she gave it to me for 9. So that's the story of how I got Lone Ranger in the box back in like 2008, maybe. It might have even been earlier than that. It's my timeline is really blurry on a lot of this stuff. Gyrus is a personal favorite of mine. I absolutely love this game. It's unlike any other game that I have found, even to this day, really. It's super simple. It's a shoot 'em up, but instead of, you know, you're down here shooting up or you're on the side shooting, this game, the center of the screen, the enemies will fly out and your ship goes around the screen. So you're shooting inwards, and it's so cool. This game is a ton of fun. It's got an awesome soundtrack, classical music, mind you. And I absolutely love this game. I have got to get a new copy of it, because sadly the label on mine is starting to peel. I could replace it, but I love the art so much. I'm thinking I'm just going to get another copy that is either really destroyed or that just has a really good label, and replace that for my collection. But this is definitely like probably top 5 NES games. This is one that I revisit a lot. I played a lot of Punch-Out too, and I'm not a big sports fan, so you know that tells you something. I absolutely love this game. I never got very far in it as a kid. As an adult, I still can't get past like some of the later enemies. Like I think I get like 2 or 3 dudes away from Mike Tyson. I can't remember the exact order, but I know they get really tough. Like, you know, you get to Bald Bull, you get to like Soda Popinski. Some of them start repeating or like changing their names a little bit. I remember as a kid, I used to have such a hard time with like Piston Honda. But this game is still really fun. One of these days, I will go back to beat Mike Tyson. I also need to get a copy of the label variant of this, where they removed Mike Tyson from it because, you know, the whole ear biting controversy, beating up his wife stuff. But, you know, I'm glad to have this. This is the same as the one that I had. I had the original print back when I was a kid. I used to play Rad Racer a lot too. We didn't have the 3D glasses, and I didn't even know that was a feature back in the day. I remember hitting the button that like switched the mode to 3D and having no idea why it looked like that. This is a really fun game where like you're basically a street racer and you're just racing against the clock. You have to avoid other cars and like obstacles and make your turns the right way and like slow down so you don't run off the road. And you're basically racing against the clock. You want to get to the next checkpoint before it ends. I'm not good at this game. I can never make it very far in, but there's just something about old school racing games like this where it's just like you're just on the road just driving. It's almost like a liminal space type thing. I absolutely love this game. It has awesome music too, and the sound effects in it are actually really cool. I love the sound effects of the car. It's so simple, but it is so cool. I think this is like a must-have, or at least a must-play in NES history. It's very simple, but it's like you can see where like driving games came from with games like this, and I absolutely love this game. I can't really overstate how much I actually love Rad Racer just for the music alone. I don't have much to say about TNC Surf Designs. In fact, I'm not even going to take it out of the case here. I do think it's funny that you can see my old price that I paid for it way back in the day at Play and Trade. TNC Surf Designs is not a good game. but I had so much fun with it. I remember playing as a little like tiki dude with the mask and the guy with the pink glasses on skateboards, and could get a decent chunk of progress in it on that mode. But this surfing game, I don't think anybody actually knows how to play it. If you do, you're much more skilled than I, because I could never figure out what the heck I was supposed to do in the surfing game, and I could never figure out how to do anything other than wipe out within the first 10 seconds. Tiger Heli is a personal favorite shoot 'em up. It's just a really cool game. I love the soundtrack in this one. Just the first level is like so iconic to me. It's very basic and very plain. You know, the environments are not detailed. It's like solid greens, solid grays, you know, reds, but that's something I kind of like about it, because you can also tell what you're supposed to shoot at. The one thing I will say is this game, it's pretty hard, and it's kind of hard to see the projectiles at times. They flash white and red, but in a game where everything else is white and red and gray, they can be kind of hard to see at times. So it does take a little bit of skill, but I absolutely love the cover art on this one. I think that was a big part of it when I was a kid, just the colors. You know, that skyline with like the pinks, you know, contrasting against the river, and just, it's such a cool little piece of art. Almost forgot to talk about these two. Zelda and Zelda 2. Now, controversial opinion here. I like The Legend of Zelda 2. I like Adventure of Link more than I like the original. Not to say I don't love both of these games, but I just remember liking the side-scrolling and the graphics and stuff a lot more in Legend of Zelda 2. I had such a ball with this game back in the day. One of my first experience with like a level up system. I think that's a big part of it. I've never beaten this game without cheating. I'll admit it. I hide in the corner every time to beat Shadow Link, but I'm not ashamed of it. I think everybody does that. And what can you say about the original Zelda? I mean, as a kid, I didn't really appreciate as much how it was basically an open world game before those existed. But, you know, nowadays, looking back on it and everything that it's inspired, I mean, you know, Zelda literally started like a revolution in games, I think. Everybody was trying to recreate that. And now there's so many modern indie titles that are just like copying it in a good way, of course. But yeah, obviously I love these games, but I do love Zelda 2 a little bit more. I like the side-scrolling, leveling up action, and I like that it's difficult. I mean, what else can I say? I think I forgot to talk about Spider-Man. This game is not good either. The graphics are pretty bad. The music's okay. The gameplay is awful. I could never figure out how the swinging worked. His punches and kicks are awful. He has this weird jump kick thing, but man, as a kid, for some reason, I loved this game. You know, I always loved Spider-Man, so I had to have this, you know, in my collection, even as a kid. I could never get very far. I think the farthest I ever got was I beat Electro like maybe once, and I get to that second stage and it's just a maze. You can't figure out where you're supposed to go. All right, so we just talked about kind of like my childhood games, right? And how I discovered them and my experience with them, and, you know, if I liked them or not. But now I want to kind of go into the story of my timeline with the NES. So I was becoming like a preteen teenager, and I still loved video games, and everybody knew I loved video games, but I was stuck in the past with the NES and the Sega Genesis. And I had a Game Boy, maybe a Game Boy Color. Again, my timelines are all screwed up, but I just remember the only home consoles I had were the NES and the Sega Genesis. And I really wanted a PlayStation 2 because I had friends that had, you know, all the new consoles, you know, that I didn't have, from Super Nintendo, N64, PlayStation. The PlayStation 2 had just come out, and I really wanted one. And I got a bunch of money for my birthday that year, you know, right before the PlayStation 2 came out. And I was able to get a PlayStation 2 at launch. Left an important part out of that story. I didn't have enough money. I did get like, I think like $100 or $200, something like that, in like cash for my birthday from friends and family and saving up throughout the year. And I was telling my parents, like, I want to go buy a PlayStation 2. And like, I kind of tricked them because they were like, well, how much is it? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure I have enough. And maybe they knew that was bullshit. And I know my brother knew it was bullshit, but he wanted one too. So he talked them into it. He was like, yeah, we should go get one tomorrow. So that day after my birthday, I'm up bright and early. I'm sitting there counting my money in my wallet over and over again. Like, I'm going to get a PlayStation 2 today. And my dad, with the foresight that he had, and my mom, you know, they wanted to get rid of junk all the time. And I think they kind of knew that I didn't have enough money. So they were like, why don't you pack up all of your old games and we will go up to Funko Land. We'll get a PlayStation 2 today, but you're going to have to trade in all this stuff. And without a thought, really, I was like, okay, yeah, I want a PlayStation 2. So we go up there, and like, I just remember they're like trading all the stuff in. They're telling my dad how much, I can get for each game. And, it wasn't a lot of money. I think selling like the NES and like all of our games, all of our accessories, our Sega Genesis, all that. I can't remember the exact amount, but I think it was somewhere close to like $80. And $11 of that was my copy of Mega Man 2. Mega Man 2 was a game that I had acquired from my grandmother. And this game, if you've seen my Mega Man video, Mega Man 2 changed my life as a gamer. This game the character design, the fact that you could select the levels, the music, it made such a big impact on me despite the terrible cover art. When you actually get to the gameplay and see what it looks like, it's just incredible. And it really stuck with me. And I'll forever love Mega Man 2 as my #1 favorite NES game. But my grandmother gave it to me. You can watch the Mega Man video on my channel to hear the story of how I discovered Mega Man. But I just remember sitting there and like they told me how much I was going to get for it. And my dad was like looking at me like, do you want to do it? My brother didn't care because he was past this stuff at that time. And I just remember I was cool with it. I was cool with selling my NES and my controllers and all the other games, but I just remember like holding Mega Man 2. I remember looking at it and like holding it and being like, man, like I'm not going to be able to play Mega Man 2 anymore. And it was kind of heartbreaking to me. And my dad was like, yeah, like, I mean, and like, you got to sell them all because you can't just keep Mega Man 2 because you won't have anything to play it on. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And like the guy at the counter was like, actually, that's one of the games you're getting more money for. You're getting like $11 for it. I remember that number. He was like, you're getting $11 for it. And I was like, oh, wow, $11. As a kid, it's a lot of money. And we did it. We sold our NES and all the games. And I didn't regret it at the time. I got a PlayStation 2, so I was happy. But I would go on to definitely regret it. And I'm going to get into that story. But first, I want to talk about some of the other memories that I have with the NES before that. All the childhood games, they're all here. Later on, I would get games like Castlevania and Dragon Warrior from friends and like borrow them and play them for a little bit and really enjoy them. But I could never finish them because my friends wanted them back too soon. And it's funny because Castlevania is such a popular game that I remember playing it and being really into it. And then they took it back. I think my brother borrowed it from a friend, so I didn't know when it was going to come and go. But I could never remember what the damn game was called. And it wasn't until years later, I finally figured out that it was Castlevania 1 that I was playing. Years later. And I was like, oh, I did play Castlevania when I was a kid. I just didn't know it. And then Dragon Warrior was just one of my first introductions to RPGs. I couldn't ever really get into this one because it was super hard. It didn't have save states, and it just didn't have that factor that grabbed me like Pokemon did later on. I do remember one of my first experiences at a flea market when I was a kid. It was some of the only NES games I got to buy as a kid, and they were my games. And that's Captain Skyhawk and Super Mario Bros. 3. Now, I couldn't believe that I found this at a flea market for like $2, and my mom bought it for me. And Captain Skyhawk, I was not expecting this game to be any good, but it was really fun. It's very hard, but it's got such a cool 3D isometric perspective on it. But I remember the day that I got this. I got it, and I don't have a copy of this game yet, but I'm looking for it. But a copy of the X-Men game on the NES. I got all 3 of these together that day. And let me tell you, man, Captain Skyhawk, pretty cool game. The X-Men game sucked, but I liked it at the time. But I got Super Mario Bros. 3, and like even my friends who didn't grow up with the NES, right? Like we were past the era of like, oh, this is like you have to have this game. But even, as kids, like we knew this game was special because I remember I got this and I called my friend Steven. I was like, hey, like I got some new Nintendo games like we can play. He's like, oh, what'd you get? And so I was like telling him, I was like, yeah, I got Super Mario Bros. 3. He's like, whoa, you got Super Mario Bros. 3? I was like, yeah. He's like that game. Like, he's like, I'm coming over. And he did, and we played it all day. And like, man, what a magical experience that was. This game was hard to get from what I'm told, when it released. So I just walked into a flea market years later in the 90s, bought it for like $2-3. And I mean, we had a blast. So like, even back then, games that were good, like they had a reputation, right? And I spent so much time playing this game, and like I absolutely loved it. I remember Steven came over and he was showing me like all the secrets because his brothers grew up with it and he played way more than I did, and he would watch his brothers. So like he knew how to get the flutes and he showed me all the secrets and stuff. I'm like, man, the memories I have with Super Mario Bros. 3, this is probably the best NES game. I would have to say it kind of ties with Kirby for me. I will say that this game definitely performs better than Kirby, but Kirby does have a lot of really cool stuff going on in it, so it's difficult for me to say which game I think is the best NES game overall. Of course, my personal favorite we know is Mega Man 2, but if I had to pick, subjectively a game that I thought was the best, it would probably be a tie between Super Mario Bros. 3 and Kirby's Adventure. So as I told you, all this stuff, all these games, we sold it. We sold it off to FuncoLand. So it was all gone. And I had my PlayStation 2, I was happy with my PlayStation 2. I had Mega Man 8, which was a PlayStation 1 game. That was the first PlayStation 2 game I bought. Later on, my brother would rent Ready to Rumble Boxing. I would play like a NASCAR game that my dad bought for me. Eventually, I started getting games I actually wanted on it, like Kingdom Hearts and stuff like that. But I didn't have an NES for a really long time. And there were some games that would get re-released on the PlayStation 2, like one of the ones that kind of made me want to go back was the Mega Man Anniversary Collection. And I was like, I finally get to play Mega Man 2 again, but the itch of the NES never went away. And this is where the story gets interesting. So I'm in high school. This is a long time past. I was happy with my PlayStation 2. I was happy with my Game Boy Advanced and, all that stuff. One day, I'm in the cafeteria, and a kid who, I was friends with, I had gone to school with him all through grade school. He has a black little device in his hands. And I'm like, it's a DS. I've seen those before, but I didn't have one. And then all of a sudden I look at the screen and he's playing Mario 3 on it. And I was like, I didn't know that they released Mario 3 on the DS. That's pretty cool. And I was, striking up a conversation with him. He's like, actually, it's not, I'm not playing it. It's not a DS game. I installed this thing on it. I was like, what's that? And he closes it and he turns it off and he pops out a card. And he's got this little tiny black card that just says R4 on it. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And he's like, it's a card. You can download all these games. It's emulation. It was the first time I'd heard what emulation was. But basically the R4, you could load emulators on it and play games like Sega Genesis, Game Boy, NES, as I recall. Super Nintendo ran okay, I think. Like, he had it all on this DS, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, wait, like, so like NES games, you can put any game on it. He was like, yeah, any game. So like, can you put Mega Man 2 on it? He was like, yeah. And he's like, all I have to do is go find these files called ROMs, so I can put it on there. So the next day he comes in and he's done that. And I'm like, whoa, and like, he hands it to me and I'm opening it and I'm playing Mega Man 2 and I'm having the time of my life. I'm like, I can't believe how good this looks on this tiny screen. It plays well. I need one of these. Like, I have to get one. He's like, do you want my DS? And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, I'll sell it to you. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, do you want it? I was like, yeah, like, you'll sell it to me with everything already on it. And he sold it to me for like $80. I can't remember if that was a good deal at the time. But I just remember I was like, yeah, dude, absolutely. And we became friends through that, where we would hang out all the time and play games together. But that was my first experience with like homebrew hacking type stuff, was on the DS Lite, with a black 3DS Lite with an R4 card. And that really kind of sparked the thing in me to like get back into retro gaming. At the time, YouTube was a big thing too. I remember I was watching Pete Dorr, Happy Console Gamer, Gamester 81, just a bunch of really early YouTubers, and just having a ball with that and rediscovering not only the games that I loved, but the games that they were telling me about. And retro gaming, you could tell, was about to make a comeback, and so I started getting into it. I had a PSP, at some point, and the only reason that this is here is because it was kind of the same situation with the DS, but I remember the DS was where it started, and then eventually I started homebrewing the PSP and playing all the games I could on there and just downloading whatever I could try. But these were responsible for getting me back into my old games. And without these, I don't think I would have gotten into retro game collecting like I did and like I am so into it today. So I had to mention these because it's very important. I started watching Pete Dorr and Happy Console Gamer, and there was something that was very apparent, and that was that, despite how cool it was to be able to play these games on the go and take them with me, I really missed playing it on a screen, on the CRT TV, holding the controller in my hand and looking at it, and just like, that was an experience. And I couldn't say that it was just this nostalgic feeling. I really did love these games. And so I was like, how am I going to get an NES. And so I just remember I would watch mostly Pete Dorr back in the day, and he would, do games I bought recently. A lot of YouTubers did that. I had an old channel. It was originally called MCR Obsessor 003. If you remember that at all, you're old. And then I did a channel called Johnny Jet Set. It was just the same thing as MCR Obsessor 003. And I had a decent little following on that channel for YouTube back in the day. I remember I had like maybe 700 subscribers or something. And back in the day, that was a big deal. Now it's nothing. Drop in the bucket. But back then it was pretty cool. I remember I got to go on All Gen Gamers. I discovered just so much stuff. Discovered so much stuff in that era. But I do remember I was like, I have to get my hands on this stuff again. And Pete would always talk about flea markets. If you have a local store, they might have stuff. Just go ahead, ask, go to yard sales, ask. That was like the thing back in the day. You just had to go look. And there was a flea market. You've seen the video on my channel. It should still be there, called Bellwood Flea Market. It has since closed, but this is the one. Bellwood Flea Market had quite a few video game vendors when I first went. I was like maybe 14 or 16, somewhere in that age range. Again, can't remember. I do remember the first day that I went there. It was me, my mom took me because I couldn't drive at the time, and we were there with my Uncle Clyde. And I was like, yeah, like I took like $40 in cash, and I was like, my goal today is to find a Nintendo. And I was really not expecting to find it, but my uncle was telling me, he's like, oh yeah, he's like, people have all kinds of stuff like that. And I, old people don't know video games, right? And so I was like, sure you see video games, thinking I was gonna find VHS tapes and stuff like that. But sure enough, I found this booth with this woman with just tons of NES games, consoles, everything. She had everything. And she was like, I'm here every week. And I, struck up a conversation with her, and it was the first time she had heard anybody call it the NES. She's like, oh, he has this funny name for the Nintendo. He calls it a NES. And like, it was just really funny. But this is the NES that I bought from her that day. It still works to this day. I remember I had to clean it, took it apart, and of course it's been serviced probably at least 20 times since back in the day, with cleaning it, taking the pin connector out, and boiling that. But this is the NES that I bought at that flea market that fateful day. This is the zapper that I got. This is the controller, and I know that it's the controller because it's the one with the little nick and the start select button. This is what I bought that day. And along with it, I bought some real banger games because they were cheap. It was Hide because of the AVGN episode, and Mock Rider because I'd never heard of it, but it looked cool and she only wanted $2 for it. And I had a blast. Hide is not a good game, but I still just firing up and being like, oh my God, like that's when the spark was lit in me. I was like, I can get, like, I paid $20 for this NES. I paid $2 for these games. I had $40 in cash, and I walked away with this that day. And I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. Like, my hobbies were music, and now, video games. I was like, retro gaming. That's where it's at. I can buy these games for cheap, and they're still fun. I didn't have a lot of money, so it was like a really great time in the retro gaming community when you could buy NES games for $1, $2, $5 was considered expensive. Somebody asking more than, $20 for an NES that you couldn't test was ridiculous. Like, just thinking back to it, I'm like, man, we had it so good. I just wish that I was in a position where I had more money back in the day. I would have so much cool stuff, but I kind of like that I don't. I have stuff that I really care about, and I do have a very large collection, but they're all games that I truly care about. Because years ago I had to sell off a bunch of it, but this was the NES that I got, and I remember bringing it back and just having a ball, and I was like, oh my God, I have to go crazy with this. And I did. I remember going back to her. I eventually bought a Sega Genesis from her. I bought a bunch of the games that are in my NES collection today from this woman, and just that's how I rediscovered the NES. I would go back every week and I'd buy like a couple games from her. That's how I have the shelf over here now. But there was one game that, of course, no matter how hard I looked, it was popular. Mega Man just didn't pop up at this flea market for a long time. And it was before I was comfortable using eBay as well. And so I was on Amazon. And I bought a copy of Mega Man 2 on Amazon Marketplace for like $18. And I remember it was like $18, and then with shipping it was like another $7, so it was like $25, which I was like, man, I can't believe I'm paying that much for an old game. But as soon as I bought this and fired it up, I immediately knew that I didn't regret the decision. this little setup right here is what created me as a gamer, and I was so happy to have it back. And just that feeling of like old games, there wasn't a lot to work with, but they made these awesome little pieces of art. I absolutely love this generation. And since then, obviously I have a pretty big NES collection now. If you look over here, you can see, minus the games that I took out for this video, and my drink and the mess on the shelf here, but I have a pretty big NES collection. I love the NES. The NES is my favorite console of all time. I think it's aged incredibly well. I just love this little console. 8 bits, some of the best soundtracks you'll ever hear, some of the coolest graphics. The 8-bit style, it holds up. And that's why there's so many indie games nowadays that recreate that art style of like the 8-bit and even the 16-bit era. It's simple, but it gives so much life and character with what you can do with limitation. I think that's really what makes some of these games so awesome, is there were limitations, and the things that these programmers and these composers and these writers did to make it work is just, it's really inspiring to me. It's just fantastic. So the NES nowadays, to me, what does it mean? It means expensive. The NES to me was like the entry point, right? And years ago, I would have told you that the NES is where you start. If you want to get into retro gaming, you start with the NES. It's a little harder to say that nowadays. Nowadays when somebody wants to get into it, I tell them, you could track down an NES and you can probably find one for $80 if you're lucky. But get one of these cheap clone consoles. They work decent enough. If you're going to be plugging it into a modern TV, it's going to be a pretty bad experience anyway. But if you can find yourself an old CRT or maybe a good, decent cheap upscaler with like something like a Retron or like a Retron 5 that can do HDMI output, a good place to start. Really, my perspective on original hardware and stuff and all that has changed. If you want to play these games, play them. Whether it's emulation or a handheld emulation device, or if you want to get, a clone console and a CRT TV, I really think that it's a good idea. Like I said, I got back into it through emulation. And then I discovered that, while I liked emulation and convenience, there's really nothing like that zero input lag on a CRT for me. I like that experience. That's what it is for me, but you don't need that. Anyway, that's another conversation for another time. I just wanted to talk about my NES story. Where I'm at with the NES now is I still have CRTs that I like to play it on, but I have a RetroTink 4K. And let me tell you, I've never been able to play my old games on a modern television until I got the RetroTink 4K. I really cannot feel any lag anymore. I don't know what magic is going on there between the RetroTink 4K and the component RGB mod that I did with my NES, and an OLED TV. But it's like playing on a CRT basically, and I don't feel the lag. And I test it with games that I know very well. Mega Man 2. I have a test where I play Flashman stage, and if I fall during that jump puzzle, or if I fall during the Bubble Man section, that means that there's too much lag, and I never have that problem. So that's basically, it. If you want to get into retro gaming, this is where I started, but you can get into it however it best suits you. Whatever gets you into it, I say the more the merrier. Don't get scammed. Don't buy these super expensive games just to have them. Test them first. You have ways to test these. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Find out if you actually like the game first, and then if you decide you like it enough, go buy a physical copy. Go buy the NES, or the clone console, or however you see fit. But for me, it's the NES all the way. There's nothing like an NES and a CRT, on a late night, sitting there alone in the glow of the TV, that mono speaker blaring these awesome soundtracks in your ears. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this little trip down memory lane with me. I intend to do more of these with individual games, game franchises, individual consoles, and just tell my story of how I came across them and discovered them, what my experience was like through that entire timeline up to today. This was the first little test pilot episode of what I'm calling Random Access Memories. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Jonnicom, and I will see you guys next time.